Last Sunday in Tampa Stadium, they played what many were calling the #1 draft pick bowl. For the loser of the Seahawks-Buccaneers game would be one step closer to first crack at the 76 college seniors. But it is far from a two-team race. In Minnesota, for instance, the misadventurous Merry Madcaps from Manhattan, the New York Giants, stayed winless. Steve Craig's block of Dave Jennings' punt was the 8th kick spike this year by the Vikings, and Nate Allen, number 25, who has 4 of those blocks, was rewarded for his previous valor when this one fell right into his hands. Allen's score got the Vikings off to a quick 10-0 lead, and the game was pretty much over. But along the way, Fran Tarkenton, with 21 completions, became the first man in pro football history to complete 3,000 passes. Minnesota's win kept the Vikings in first place in the NFC Central Division, the Giants in last place in the East, and 1 game ahead of the Atlanta Falcons in the draft pick race. The Giants' 24-7 loss made them 0-6. The Falcons, after Cleveland's Greg Pruitt, number 34, got done with them, are 1-5. Pruitt rushed for 191 yards and set up a 14-0 Cleveland lead. But despite the absence of Falcon quarterback Steve Bartkowski, Kim McQuilkin, number 11, and Bubba Bean, number 44, kept the game close. Bean's touchdown and an Atlanta field goal had the Falcons ahead 17-14 and in danger of their second win until they saw Pruitt do it again. Pruitt's 45-yard run set up the winning touchdown, made new Falcon coach Pat Pepler's debut a bust, and kept the Falcons with 1 win, very much in the #1 draft pick race after their 20-17 loss. The Saints stayed at 2 wins because they ran into the red-hot San Francisco 49ers, whose 7 sacks ran their 2-week total to 17, while on offense, the 49ers ran up 30 points in the first half alone. Jim Plunkett's 55-yarder to Gene Washington made Washington the 49ers' all-time receiving yardage leader. In San Francisco's 33-3 victory, Big Jim also threw 1 other touchdown pass, and number 42, Anthony Leonard, completed the scoring with a 60-yard punt return. Offense, defense, and special teams. San Francisco is doing everything right. Well, almost everything anyway. Anthony Leonard has not yet learned to balance a football on those little orange things in the end zone. Meanwhile, in the Expansion Bowl, the officials stole the show, calling 34 penalties, 37 is the NFL record, and stepping off over 300 yards. It was only natural, therefore, that when Jim Zorn hit Steve Largent for a touchdown, it was called back. But on the very next play, a flagless one, Zorn found Sam McCullum over the middle as the Seattle Seahawks led the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 13-3 at halftime. Ten points isn't insurmountable, but to the Bucs, it must seem that way. In the previous 5 weeks, they had scored only 26 points on 2 touchdowns and 4 field goals. One of the touchdowns, in fact, was scored by the Buc defense, as Tampa Bay just can't seem to buy a touchdown. Bad luck and good Seattle defense looked like they would keep the Bucs out of the end zone for yet another Sunday. Finally, late in the third quarter, a unique pass from Lewis Carter to Morris Owens brought the score to 13-10. but that was all Tampa Bay could muster. Jack Patera and the Seattle Seahawks had won. But why is Jack smiling when the victory may have cost him next year's #1 draft pick? Well, he's smiling because, in reality, there isn't a team in the NFL that wouldn't trade a draft pick for a victory. The Seahawks now have their first victory ever, but it's just the 6th week of the season, and for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, there's still plenty of time. Denver's Mile High Stadium looked like a bowl of orange chrysanthemums last Sunday as the Broncos tried to regain their first-place tie with the Oakland Raiders. This Steve Ramsey touchdown pass to Haven Moses gave Denver a 10-0 lead, but the #1 offensive team in the conference came back just far enough as Ken Stabler hit on 16 of 20 passes, and the Oakland Raiders won their 14th straight game in Denver, 17-10. In Buffalo, new head coach Jim Ringo looked for help anywhere he could get it. And the first place he found it was way downfield, as a long Joe Ferguson pass caught up with last year's NFL rushing champion O.J. Simpson in the Baltimore Colts end zone. Simpson's touchdown gave Buffalo the lead 13-10 in the second quarter, but the Bills were unable to score again, due in good part to the ferocious Baltimore sack pack. After 3 quarters, Burt Jones and company led by only 17-13. But in the 4th period, the Colts pulled away from the slumping Bills and padded their victory margin to a convincing 31-13. For the Colts, it was another joyful 4th period on the way to an apparent postseason playoff position. For Coach Jim Ringo and the Bills, it's back to the old drawing board. As Ringo said after the game, we still have some people who have to understand that football is a game you play for 4 quarters. In Miami, when it rains, it pours, as Don Shula's Dolphins found out last Sunday. Miami uncharacteristically turned the ball over 5 times, and just as uncharacteristically turned the lead over to the Kansas City Chiefs with just 2 minutes left in regulation time. As most of you know by now, this Otis Taylor lookalike is a rookie wide receiver from Missouri named Henry Marshall, and his 59-yard run gave Kansas City the lead 17-14 with 1:45 to go. But then a ghost of Christmas past appeared before the Chiefs. Garo Yepremian, the man who ended the NFL's longest game on Christmas Day 1971, this time sent the game into overtime. In overtime, the Dolphins rolled up 4 straight first downs and were about to repeat some history when suddenly linebacker Billy Andrews pulled the ball away from Norm Bulash. Rookie cornerback Tim Collier recovered in the end zone for Kansas City. And out of the confusion came the sudden realization that the season may be about over for the Dolphins. With just 17 seconds left in overtime, it was only poetic justice that Jan Stenerud should get his chance, because in that same Christmas Day game, it had been Stenerud who missed from 31 yards to send the game into sudden death. Stenerud's kick bounced through from 34 yards, and remarkably, the Chiefs had won 2 in a row, while the Dolphins had lost 3 in a row. As Stenerud said after the game, "I had a deep personal reason for wanting to make this field goal, but nothing can ever make up for that other one." Dick Vermeil, the Eagles' hard-bitten, hard-chewing coach, saw victory number 3 within his grasp. Far-fetched? Not really. Under quarterback Lynn Dickey, number 10, the Packer offensive bark has been as feeble as its bite. Stone Age conservatism and stone-cold hands marked a Green Bay attack that ranked dead last in the NFC after 5 games. But facing an Eagle rush that one coach said couldn't penetrate tissue paper, the Packers thrived. Number 85, Ken Payne, caught his first touchdown pass, an astounding fact considering he grabbed 58 passes a year ago. Dickey, a 41% passer, caught backs like Willard Harrell, number 40, in mismatches with Eagle linebackers all afternoon as the heretofore stodgy Packers turned stunning and won their 3rd straight game 28-13. Sagging offenses abounded in Los Angeles, where the young and fearsome Bears met the weakened Rams. With both his veteran quarterbacks recuperating from injury, Chuck Knox had only rookie Pat Hayden to shove into the breach. For this Southern Cal grad, the Coliseum was home turf, and throwing touchdowns was an old and familiar habit. Lawrence McCutcheon's score helped build a 10-0 Ram lead, but the Bears are resilient this season and just as tough and mean as ever. Chicago leads the NFL in sacks. Their penetration turns pocket passers into scramblers and a raw rookie like Hayden into meat for a Chicago Bears sandwich. The Bears knocked Pat Hayden out of the game, and with first stringer James Harris charting plays instead of calling them, the situation looked dismal. The omens became reality when Walter Payton, who has gained almost 700 yards this year, whistled in for 6 to give Chicago a 12-10 lead. Hot on Payton's heels for the conference leadership in rushing is Lawrence McCutcheon, who raced 18 untouched yards to ice a 20-10 come-from-behind victory. When asked if Payton was the best he ever played against, linebacker Isaiah Robertson replied, "One guy you never stick your tongue out at is Dallas quarterback Roger Staubach, whose tidy set of statistics has buried 5 straight opponents. Against the St. Louis Cardinals, Staubach and tight end Billy Joe Dupree meshed so perfectly it appeared the Cowboys were running skeleton drills on the practice field." However, the Cardinals were not unduly worried, for if Dallas has the faculty for producing the home run play, they also historically have the facility for allowing them. The Cowboys' deep defense was said to be soft, and Mel Gray, number 85, turned it into jello. In wide receiver Gray and setback Terry Metcalf, number 21, St. Louis has a 1-2 punch unrivaled in pro football. It was Metcalf's ability to evaporate into the secondary and behind Cowboy linebackers that produced a 14-10 lead for the Cardinals. Ultimately, the difference in the game was the Cowboys' failure to cash in on this opportunity created by Charlie Waters, number 41. Instead of reaping a touchdown, or at the very least a field goal, Dallas came up dry, while St. Louis engineered a 98-yard drive that ended in a lady luck touchdown by Gray. Gray rubbed a spike into Dallas' wounds and seemed to put some ginger in their offense. Operating behind the shotgun, Staubach spit out a final touchdown to Drew Pearson. Even though they managed to make the Cardinals bleed a little at the end, it was the Cowboys who died with their cleats on and lost their first game 21-17. San Diego Old Timers Day brought back ever-youthful Lance Allworth and memories of the point-a-minute AFL. Another Charger alumnus wore powder blue boots and a snazzy silk shirt, but former San Diego assistant Bum Phillips had not returned the party. Bum's Houston Oilers had come to town with every intention of chewing up this latest edition of San Diego's 8-year-old rebuilding plan. But these new Chargers have shaken up a few people this season, including Oiler Billy Johnson, whose nose got knocked in the dirt. In fact, on Alumni Sunday, San Diego conjured up quite a few images of glory past. Number 18, Charlie Joyner, contributed an excellent Allworth impression. Back in the early 60s, Charger-Oiler games meant plenty of passes and points. But last week, instead of George Blanda to Charlie Hennigan, it was number 7, Dan Pastorini, to double O, Ken Burrow, bringing Houston tight-roping back. Everyone was having such fun wallowing in nostalgia that it seemed a shame to stop. So in a toast to barn burners past, Billy Johnson did his bit with a little funky chicken updating. In honor of the occasion, Billy J even added a new twist to end his end zone act. But all the whoop-de-doo finally got to the Oilers, and they began to sag. Billy Johnson was feeling some after effects of the furious pace, but surprisingly, it was San Diego who kept right on getting stronger. Was it young Bo Matthews or old Paul Lowe who bolted 41 yards to the score? On this Deja Vu Sunday, no one knew for sure, as past and present blended nicely in a good old-fashioned 30-27 Charger victory. In Washington, the Detroit Lions also scored on the long bomb, this one from Joe Reed to Ray Jarvis. Unfortunately, Detroit was down 20-0 with less than 1 minute left in the game at the time. When the outcome was still in doubt, Lion execution had not been quite so crisp. In fact, the Detroit offense flirted with disaster all day long, with 5 turnovers and numerous other false starts. The Lions' sloppy play finally did them in when the Washington defense started policing up mistakes to key a 20-7 Redskin victory. In Pittsburgh, worried Steeler fans had just one question for rookie quarterback Mike Kruczek. Kruczek was starting his first pro game in place of injured Terry Bradshaw as the 1-4 world champions faced an early defrocking at the hands of the eager Cincinnati Bengals. Rookies sometimes run into trouble, but it helps to have number 58 Jack Lambert and the Pittsburgh defense in your corner. As Pittsburgh safety Mike Wagner said after the game, Lambert told everybody if we didn't win, he'd kill us. Given that kind of ultimatum, the Pittsburgh defense promptly assumed their big game stance and recaptured their championship form. When the Pittsburgh front line scattered Cincinnati's meticulous short passing attack, Ken Anderson, number 14, went after the Steelers' secondary with even less success. The Intimidators had returned, and Cincinnati's high-powered offense was held without a touchdown for the first time in 2 years. The Steelers dominated Cincinnati 23-6 to get back into Jack Lambert's good graces. But his fire and brimstone revival may have to last all season if Pittsburgh hopes to overcome the sins of September.